Okay. Ready? Okay, I hereby call the regular meeting of the Cambria Community Services District Board of Directors to order. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All directors are present. All directors are present, so we have a quorum. I don't have a president's report at this time, so I can go right to the agenda review. And if anybody on the board wishes to either delete or change the order of agenda items, please say so now. Hearing no suggestions for agenda review or agenda adjustment, we'll move on to board member communications. Any board member make brief announcements, reports on his or her activities that are relevant to their work here, and ask a question for clarification. Anyone wish to make a report? Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray. And really, I just wanted to express my support for the excellent set of decisions and communications by the general manager and staff regarding the fire hazard fuel reduction program. We, those who have been involved, remember back to February and all of the angst over what's the date going to be. And every morning when, the cars are all covered with fog and mist, it's been, I mean, we all know that a good decision doesn't necessarily create a good outcome, but I think from in my opinion, what we're seeing now shows the wisdom of staff, and I just say best of luck to you all in the Herculean effort next week, as Monday's the 15th, and the inspection of all the vacant parcels. Godspeed and be safe.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thomas. Any other comments from the board members? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. This is when you may address the board either here or online on any topic that is within our purview, our area of responsibility, but not on today's agenda. Is there anyone here in attendance who would like to comment? I'm going to ask Ms. Stodson if there's anybody online who wants to comment in public comment.
No.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to regular business. The first item, 4A, is a discussion and consideration to fill a vacant seat on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee. There's a brief staff report. I don't know, Mr. McElhaney, you want to add anything to the staff report? Because otherwise we'll... Okay,
thank you, President Gray. Really nothing to add there. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the process. I am going to turn this over to the chair of the committee, so she'll explain what the steps she went through and her recommendations. I'd like to just remind everyone what the process is and the role of the board and the committee chair. It's in the bylaws of the standing committees. It should be noted that there's a role for both the board and the chair, but the chair is the one who makes a recommendation, and the wording of the bylaws is committee shall be appointed from a pool of applicants by recommendation of the committee chairperson and approved by a majority vote of the CCSD board of directors. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Director Dean, who's chair of the committee.
Thank you, President Gray. I received 4 applications for this position on the R&I committee. One of the applicants, Ms. Shannon Melendi, has withdrawn her application. Her application was initially for pros, and that is where she really would like to put her efforts. And I encouraged her to keep her application in and to reapply again in the beginning of the year when we reset all of the standing committee members. And so she's anxious to do that. 3 out of 4 of the applicants had never attended a Resources and Infrastructure Committee meeting, clearly understood what we did. So what I did is I sent all of the applicants one of the recordings and agenda packets from the R&I committee so that they could watch a meeting, look at the agenda, and understand exactly what it is we are working on. And then I asked them to contact me last night to let me know what they thought. And I have some very excited applicants. So I would like to, if it's okay, go ahead and start calling the applicants to come up to the podium to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their qualifications, and answer some questions for clarification from the board, if that's acceptable. Okay,
Proceed, yes.
I would like to start with Miss Deborah Wright. Miss Wright, welcome.
Press the button down.
On now? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm Deborah Wright, and I have lived in Cambria full-time since 2018. I've been following the board and attended CCSD meetings from approximately 2012 through 2017, also following it online. And I need to disclose that I do have a water weight position on a lot that my husband and I just closed on within the last 4 weeks. And we are planning to merge that lot into one APN. So I will probably be abandoning that water weight position as I am more wanting to merge the lot into one APN than I am to try to wait for the long process to try to move it to another lot or sell it. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the CCSD pros committee because when I did look at the agenda and the meeting, I thought, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to really even understand this? Because I have been out of touch, obviously. But when I got on, I was pleasantly surprised that I understood and was able to follow everything that was going on in the meeting. And it is something that I am truly interested in following. So my background is that in over 30 years of my career, I spent in either program development, project management, or conceptual development across the United States, mostly in cybersecurity. But I found that I'm really a big picture thinker. So when I was listening to the recording, I was able to follow along based on the fact that I had already attended meetings, sort of followed what the CCSD was doing over the years. And so I feel that I could hit the ground running. I'm a quick learner, and really this is something that I'm really passionate about, is getting back involved with the community. And I was glad that it was your committee that it was actually a vacancy on. So that's.
Okay,
Thank
should
you.
we go ahead and ask
Yeah,
the board if they have
any
any
questions from the board
questions?
member? Yes, I'm sorry. Any questions from the board members? Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. That's right. First, thank you for applying for this this position on the R&I committee. So first, let me say that after you gave us a little bit of your background with regard to your housing situation, so to speak, you said, I'm interested in the pros committee. Now, I know that was probably just a slip of the tongue that you actually meant R&I.
Oh,
But-
R&I, yes, because we were talking about pros right before. I meant the R&I,
Okay,
absolutely.
no
Thank you.
problem. But we've all stumbled occasionally when we got one thing and said another. Is there a reason that you haven't attended either by Zoom or in person any of the R&I meetings?
Yes, I actually, for the longest time, I wasn't even aware there were any committees. We purchased another house in 2020. We closed on it literally 2 weeks before COVID hit. It was a house that I needed to remodel. So because of contractor shortages, material shortages, we just completed the remodel of the interior of the house in March of this year. That's when I started looking for more ways to get involved in the community. And that's when I really found out about the different committees. I really didn't even know they existed because I had been out of the loop for the last 5 years. So I was very surprised when I did listen to the R&I meeting that I was able to it's like I never even left. It was easy to jump back in because I'd paid so much attention in the past to what was going on.
So, you mentioned that you attended board meetings from 2012 to 2017. I
Often.
believe you said that. What was your impression of the board and the functioning of the district during that time?
I thought there was a lot of controversy, especially from the attendees who wanted to speak. A lot of it was when they were really upset with the facility that was being built and how the things were being handled. They were very disruptive meetings, I felt.
Okay, I could probably ask you more, but I should allow some time for my my fellow directors. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Any other questions? Directors. Oh, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thanks. And Harry, great questions, Director Farmer. And Ms. Wright, any friends or folks you know who have like encouraged you? I mean, did you you're kind of getting back in the saddle, it sounds like, of volunteer work. Any, interesting to see how you connected back in.
I actually joined next door and I saw that the committee had the opening. And I mentioned to my husband, this is something I might like to do. And then when I kind of read it, I went, ooh, I don't know if I'd be in over my head or not. So that's when I went ahead and put in the application anyway. And then when I got the Zoom meeting and I looked at it and I saw that I really did understand what was going on, I said, I'm going to go ahead and keep my hat in the ring and just see what happens. I want to get back involved in the community, and I think this is a good opportunity.
Well, it's certainly encouraging that we have so much enthusiasm for this. I'm really excited to see a lot of applicants. So thank you so much.
Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, and thank you for your application. I have just one question, and that is, can you explain how your background specifically lends itself to the R&I committee's charge?
I think that because I've always been what I call the big picture, I am not a boots on the ground, do the work type of person. I'm conceptual design, research. That's my biggest forte. Research and design, conceptual design, program project management. And I'm really good at researching, so I don't worry about if I'm not a subject matter expert, I can quickly get that skill.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Dr. Dean, who's up next?
Okay, did
Okay,
you
thank
not
you.
have any questions?
I have no questions of that. No,
Okay.
I think
Thank you, Ms.
Chris has
Heinrichs.
covered the topic very well.
I believe Ms. Heinrichs is going to do the discussion for one of the candidates.
Yeah. And I wanted to note that Ms. Heinrichs is doing this on behalf of a candidate, so she has also asked to speak in public comment. So this is separate from that.
Yeah,
You'll get to speak.
No, this is my public comment.
This is your public comment.
Right.
But you're reading a statement, or are you going to?
I'm reading a statement from Bill Michelson,
Okay.
who was unable to attend. So obviously I can't answer questions on his behalf, but I can read his statement.
So you will not be asking for. Okay.
I don't have anything else. This
Thank
is
you.
it.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay. Yeah, this is on behalf of Bill Michelson. He had a medical appointment that made it impossible for him to attend, but he is very interested. He says, I am writing this to support my appointment to the Resources and Infrastructure Committee. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend this board meeting due to a very hard to get medical appointment that I've been awaiting for almost 2 months. I live on Yorkshire Drive in Cambria and have been a homeowner here since 2008. In support of my request for this post, I offer the following training and experience. I am a concerned Cambria citizen who is willing to offer my labors in pursuit of improving our community, CCSD services, and our way of life here on the Central Coast. My education includes a BA in history from Cal State Northridge, MA in curriculum from Chapman University, and a diploma from the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. My work experience includes San Luis Obispo County Grand Jury, terms in 2021 to 2022 and 2022 to 2023, public school teacher in history and government. While on active duty as commissioned officer in the U.S. Army, my assignments included long-term NATO communications infrastructure improvements, construction and upgrades project officer, Allied Forces South in Naples, Italy, installation commander for a 1,000-person military base with the responsibility for all services, police, fire, communications, water, sewage, roads and buildings, heating, oil and fuels, supply and food service, vendors, as well as tactical equipment maintenance and repair for vehicles, communications gear, and weapons. Grant writing while a public school teacher for curriculum enhancements and site improvements, leadership, command, and staff positions at increasing levels. My goal, water, acquisition of new water sources, preserving and improving water, wastewater infrastructure, and controlling costs for ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So unfortunately, Mr. Michelson isn't here to answer questions. So I guess we'll move on to the third applicant.
Okay, our remaining applicant is Dennis Dujic. Would you like to come forward?
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Director Dean and fellow directors. And thank you for this opportunity to serve the Cambria community. You have my technical qualifications in front of you. So I thought there might be a few other things about me that you ought to know. Beginning as a young Cub Scout and Boy Scout, service to my community became an integral part of my life. As a teenager, when my church needed a cantor, I volunteered. When Pamela and I married in 1973 and our church community had no youth choir, we volunteered to lead one. With our 4 young sons, we served as a marriage encounter presenting team couple. Before our oldest sons, the twins, turned 7, we were asked by our local sheriff if we would help restart the local scout troop. I took on the role of Cub Master and then Scoutmaster, and Pamela became the first den leader. After 15 years of service to scouting in 2 communities, I handed the leadership off to my assistant Scoutmasters, and the troops continued to thrive. My career then took me to the former McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento, where I supported the groundwater contamination cleanup. Since my father served in the Air Force in World War II, I tracked down the McClellan Aviation Museum group and attended a board meeting there. The museum was on the verge of closure, and that was due to lack of space, facilities, and funding. So I volunteered to serve on the museum board. There, I led the successful campaign to secure the funding, find a permanent location, and acquire the property for the museum. We relocated the museum to that property, built a new museum facility, and renamed it the Aerospace Museum of California. Since Pamela was 11, she and her family had come to Cambria to visit her grandparents, aunt, and uncle, formerly lived on Park Hill. Her uncle also helped build the Santa Rosa Catholic Church. And I have been visiting Cambria since I was 18. Before we were married, it had been our dream to move to Cambria. So over 23 years ago, we bought a lovely lot on Lodge Hill that was on the water wait list in the hopes of building and moving here. We subsequently bought and merged other lots with it. Early last year, we decided it was time to make Cambria our forever home. In November, we purchased and moved to an existing mobile home here. I have resigned from my former position on the board of the Lot Owners Association of Cambria. I've helped pull weeds on Main Street, have participated in Forest Committee Zoom meetings. My wife and I are members of the Friends of the Fiscalini Ranch Preserve and the Cambria Center for the Arts. And I sing in the church choir. Cambria is our forever home. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Yes. Dr. Dean first.
Yeah,
Oh, Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. Well, Mr. Duchek and I, we've known each other ever since he bought his property here because his property was on Bradford and I was living right below his property on Burton Drive. We saw each other many times. They planted trees. I watered them. I mean, so we had, I think, a very respectful relationship. And I think for the most part, that still exists. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dennis. So first, Dennis, you just mentioned that and that you have resigned from Unlock, the United Lot Owners of Cambria.
Yes.
So first, let me ask you, what was your position at one point? What position of responsibility or authority did you have, and how long were you involved with Unlock before you resigned? And why did you resign?
Well, it's been a couple of years since we joined Unlock. Not right away. It was something we've heard about and thought we ought to join. I didn't have a formal position on the board. I was just a member of the board. I didn't serve as president or in any other capacity. I have, since we've been here, I did take the opportunity to introduce General Manager McElhaney to the president of the board. We had a meeting with General Manager McElhaney. And my reason for leaving the board is I wanted to make sure there was no confusion or concerns relative to my serving in that capacity. So that was a pretty easy decision for me to make.
Just to make sure there's no conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Anyway. Mm. Okay, I think that's enough of my questioning. So thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Welcome, and thank you for applying. The only thing that I really want to say is that the way that you have shown an interest in not only the board meetings, but also some of the committee meetings really speaks to your interest and willingness to serve. And so I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Scott.
Thank you, Vice President Scott. Anything? I think I had a question on your resume, which is quite detailed with relevant experience, which is I find very refreshing. American Water Works Association. You're an active member. What does that entail? Because I've know of them, but I usually think of them as people who are in the business of water, water provision.
Well, I have no formal position, at all
Yeah.
with AWWA. I joined the organization because I wanted to learn more about water, and because it was an area that I wasn't, hadn't really focused on directly in my career, except perhaps at McClellan Air Force Base when I was leading some of the cleanup efforts there, and related in some of the other municipal utility activities that I've done. So AWWA is really all about supporting agencies like CCSD in providing educational opportunities and news, information, keeping everybody current. And so I get routine emails. I get several emails every day from either from the AWWA directly, and I go and I read through what's happening, what's going on, and that's kind of what led me to that discussion about direct potable reuse that came up. And so I want to be on top of those kinds of issues that are happening, and direct potable reuse is certainly one that's going to continue to be more and more significant over time for CCSD.
Thank you.
Okay.
Director Dean.
It looks like you have some extensive experience in grant research and writing. Is that correct?
It is. I can't say I've always been successful at grants that I've supported or that I've written. And I didn't even mention in here that I thought I only was going to have 3 minutes. So
In your case, with this isn't really public comment. This is Q&A, so it's unlimited.
So in 2000, my wife and I formed a 501c3 nonprofit organization called the International Association for the Advancement of Steam Power. And nobody laugh. And it was one of those things I did in college, and I really wanted to see if we could maybe make a difference in the world with in that way. So being a 501c3, we needed funds. So I immediately started working on grants and doing applications and trying to figure out how we could help steam power pioneers and folks around the country get funding to do what they're trying to do. So wrote many grants there, wrote grants with other organizations, and have been part of grant applications throughout my career. So.
And it looks like you have some experience with engineering.
I do. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I'm a licensed professional engineer in California.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have for now.
Nice.
Oh, one more thing. You mentioned your waitlist position.
Mhm.
And you understand that in dealing with some of the issues that we have here with the CCSD, that would be a conflict of interest for you to participate in discussions or decisions regarding intent to serve letters in the moratorium.
I understand the potential there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Director Dean. Any other questions? No more questions? Thank you, Mr. Dujic. I will turn this over to public comment. Do we have anybody in attendance who wishes to comment on this item, on this selection process? Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for discussion, and also for, I'll start with Director Dean, because she has a recommendation to make, I believe.
All of these applicants have good qualifications. We've got a lot of things going on at R&I now that we have been working on for quite some time, and that we're almost ready to move forward to bring to the board. And the one person here that has kept track of and been present during all of the discussions of these complicated projects has been Mr. Dujic. He has attended R&I meetings regularly for well over a year, as well as the board meetings. We only have 5 or 6 meetings left in this year of R&I. And while I think some people could get caught up on things pretty quickly, to me, he's kind of like someone who's been sitting there as an alternate, like an alternate on a jury or an alternate on NCAC. And I think that he would be ready to step right in. I do thank the rest of the applicants for their applications, and I really hope that they will continue to keep the applications and be here for applying for R&I again in the beginning of the year, because as you know, we reset all of the committee members. And in the meantime, they have an opportunity to attend R&I and get up to speed for when that happens. And I do encourage them to do that. So at the moment, because of his experience and the fact that he is up to speed on everything that we have been working on throughout the whole year, I would recommend Mr. Dujic.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments from the board members? I have a brief comment to make about an issue, a topic that's come up repeatedly during these interviews. And just to put it in perspective about the waitlist position and the moratorium and the opening the waitlist, those decisions, they are, of course, very important decisions that we'll be facing at some point as a board. The R&I committee, however, their work is really not in that area. Let's say that their whole mandate is essentially to do what needs to be done to advise the board to best ensure that we have adequate water, adequate wastewater treatment, adequate resource conservation. And it's an advisory group that deals with broad issues of service to everyone, and not not the special case of people who have lots. So I think I appreciate that Mr. Dujic did say he was aware of the potential conflict if there's a vote, and it would be an advisory vote at the committee having to do with specific issues such as opening the wait list and obviously lifting the moratorium. But it's highly unlikely that issue is going to come up anytime in the near future at the R&I committee. So I don't want to make too much of that. And as for someone's point of view, I think it's good to have, people who are very well informed, out on that committee, and maybe, I don't know if it needs diversity of viewpoint, but there's nothing wrong with somebody having a point of view that's other people don't have, because there are 2 points of view in this town on that issue of growth and so forth. So I think I found his qualifications to be very impressive, and I really appreciated the fact that he has been following the meetings and he knows what's going on. He wouldn't have to be brought up to speed. And unfortunately, I wish we could have talked to, Mr. Michelson. Mr. Michelson, you're asking questions. It's too bad. And I appreciate all the people who applied, but I think Mr. Dujic does have I agree with Director Dean's recommendation. And about the recommendation, one reason I read that passage from the bylaws at the start of this is just to remind the board that this process is designed to help the chair fill out his or her committee with the people that the chair really thinks would be the best people for the committee. So I think the role of the recommendation of the chair is, to me, pretty much not the last word, because we have to vote on it, but the word that has to be respected unless there's something highly unusual going on, which in this case there's not. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion. Dr. Farmer.
I don't necessarily, I guess I could make the motion.
Yeah.
However, I want to thank Director Dean for the initiative that she took in sending recordings of the meetings and agendas of the meetings to the candidates for them to get up to speed as best they could with regard to how would they feel about serving on the R&I committee. So like I say, my hat's off to Director Dean, and I guess I'll make a motion that we accept Mr. Dujic as the next committee member for R&I.
Do you hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that this board approved Dennis Dujic for the open position on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye.
President
Thank you, Ribbon. And
President Gray, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I know I'm interrupting you.
That's okay.
I just want to make a comment. I wish Ms. Wright all the best in any pursuits that she wishes to make to be involved with the district. And hopefully we'll see you up here again soon with another application.
Yeah, Director Dean.
And yes, Ms. Wright had a lot of enthusiasm for this, and I would encourage both her and Mr. Michelson to attend the R&I meetings and get, caught up on what we're doing and reapply for the position in the
Mhm.
January. Thank you.
And I would add also attend the CCSD board meetings. That's a good way to keep
Yes.
track of things. Oh, just so you, and also we have a policy. All the applicants who didn't get in this time should know this, of keeping the applications on file for, I believe, 2 years. Yes. And so every time there's an opening on any committee, you will have an application on file. And you can choose, obviously, whether to pursue that appointment or not, but you can update your application too. But just bear in mind that you don't have to resubmit an application every time. And this process, I think, is bringing more people into the mix, which is a really good thing when we're staffing committees. So thank you all for coming and applying. I'll move on to item 4B, which is discussion and consideration of extension of the People's Self-Help Housing Schoolhouse Lane Project Intent to Serve letter. And I'll turn this over to the staff for a presentation.
Thank you, President Gray. Agenda item 4B, discussion and consideration of an extension of the People's Self-Help Housing Schoolhouse Lane Project Intent to Serve letter. This item is being presented to the board with no fiscal impact for the extension itself. And it's to give an extension for that intent to serve letter. They've been working through the permitting process and the financing process. They don't anticipate being able to break ground until after March of 2025. And so this is probably the 7th extension that they've asked for. It is a passionate group, and obviously we know in Cambria that there's a desperate need for affordable housing. I just wanted to point out our timeline on page, I believe it's 17. Excuse me. On 17, talks about several of the different steps that we've been through over the last few years. In August of 2012, it was an intent to serve letter for 22 EDUs, another 2 in December of 2012, and then 16 in January of 2013, for a total of 40. Since then, the group has had a reduction in the request by 7 EDUs for a total of 33. So if there's some of our directors noticed the discrepancy there. So I just wanted to clear that up, and then I'll turn it over to the board for further discussion. Additionally, we do have 3 representatives.
I was going to ask, I assume there is one or more representatives. You may want to come forward so we can, the board can directly ask you questions about this. Just please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable President and members of the board. I appreciate the comments from staff. And I've met several of you over the years. You don't recognize me because I'm grayer now and I'm losing hair, but here I am again. This project is one of the longest ones that we've had, unfortunately. And so we want to take a minute to update you on where we're at, but also kind of cover a little bit of history. We do have a PowerPoint, I think. Is that available to?
Excellent.
Yes, we'll pull that up. And I'm sorry, sir, what first name, last name?
I forgot. You told me that was the first thing I was supposed to do. Ken Triguero from People's Self-Help Housing. Yeah. TRIGUEIRO.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it is a pleasure to be in front of you. I'm a native of San Luis Obispo County, and so I've known the community for a long time, and it's been a pleasure to try to work here. And we've been here before, and I'll cover some of that. So yeah, we got the name there, and you could flip to the next slide, please. So a little bit of background on the company, make sure you're fresh on who we are. We were founded in San Luis Obispo County in 1970. A few local volunteers, a church pastor, a realtor, another person from the community were really interested in doing something for their neighbors in affordable housing and decent affordable housing. So they got together and formed us way back then. So that makes us the longest serving affordable housing nonprofit 501c3 designation along the Central Coast. So we're still headquartered in San Luis Obispo, but we spread out over the years too, because we keep getting, this crisis is everywhere. You know that, I think, in terms of affordable housing, especially in our area, all along the Central Coast. We've done a lot over the years, but it's still increasingly a high need. We have now served over 10,000 residents. And so we do both home ownership programs and rental apartments. And we started out doing single family residents, helping people build their own homes. And we continue to do that today. We're pretty active. We have 10 families building their own homes in Oklahoma right now. We'll do 14 more, hopefully pretty soon in San Miguel. Got 49 on the verge of starting it in Santa Maria, et cetera. That's really at the crux of what we do. But over the years, we learned it's like, homeownership is not for everybody necessarily. We've got such a high demand for folks that want to rent, or especially if you're starting out or if you're a senior and you're downsizing. There's lots of examples of need out there, and we realized we could do more. So we started doing more apartments, and now we've got, having completed about 2,000 apartments for rent right now is what we're up to. So we've spread into 4 counties. San Luis County is our concentration, of course. but we are super active in some of these other areas, just a little bit in Monterey County, mostly in Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. But I just want to tell you, like, we're active, and so they don't think we're just not doing anything on this project, because you've seen this project come before you quite a few times. We've actually got a lot going on, about 1,500 units in our pipeline, 500 or so in construction. So we're in Buellton, and we're in San Luis Obispo. We just finished one in Pismo Beach, and we're really getting a lot of things done. Each project, though, is really dependent on some different things happening in terms of how quickly it moves. It's really almost always about money. And although we use the similar sources over and over, those sources are set up through a system, and I can explain a little bit about that. But there's, like, geographically, it gets allocated differently, and there's ways to compete for that funding. And so depending on where a project is located, it may or may not compete well necessarily. And again, I can give you some more ideas about that. But I just wanted you to know that if there is any group that can get this housing done in Cambria, I'm confident it's us. We've got 240 staff people, super talented folks that do this all day. Our particular model is fully integrated, if you will. So we're acquiring sites. We have a full-time broker on staff that's looking for properties. Our project managers who are on staff are getting the entitlements and doing the planning work. We're working with a lot of different local engineers and architects, but once it's approved, we're doing the financing, which is specifically the most complicated part of development in affordable housing compared to just market rate. It's a lot more challenging. And then we're our own general contractor, using a lot of local subcontractors. We're our own property management company as well. And we're providing services. So again, we have a variety of populations who we're serving. We're always trying to be a community-based nonprofit, meaning we're trying to understand, whatever the community is, what are the highest priority needs, and how can we deliver on those needs. And so populations, it's always about lower income households. That's our primary mission. So that means, technically, HUD's definition is those families or individuals who are earning less than 80% of the area median income. And what we try to do is, in each of our, I'm really talking about apartment projects here now, because that's what we're talking about here in Cambria, is mix units in terms of who we're going to target, if you will, for those folks who would be moving in eventually, in terms of what they earn on a household basis. And that depends on how many people you have. And so we have a variety of sizes, 1s, 2s, and 3s usually, and we're going to figure out a way to make those apartments affordable to whoever's going to be living in them based on what they make. And so that's a sliding scale. So those rents are, different for different units, but the key, and this is really our mission, is to, at the end of the day, deliver a rent that is no more than about 30% of whatever they make, be it this amount or this amount. And so it's hard to tell you exactly, what those will be, but that's what we're ensuring. And we're ensuring that that's going to be affordable for those groups by placing a deed restriction that runs 55 years minimum on the property. Why 55? That's primarily a result of the main source of financing that we use. It's called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. It's been around it was started in '86, Reagan Tax Reform Act. It's had a lot of bipartisan support and is still around, and that is what really functions well. It's great. It works. The issue is it will not pay for the entire development. It'll pay for, 50 to 60%, maybe roughly, and it's always different. But what that means is we need to go out and find some additional sources before we can ask for those tax credits. You can flip the page. I'm probably a little bit ahead here. So the project here that we're talking about is at 33 units affordable, and that's that deed restriction that I was mentioning. So we hope to serve people who are at that low income category and the very low if we can, and as low as we can, because those lowest of the low, that's the hardest folks to deliver housing for. And we know there's extensive demand for this. So we have those 2,000 units right now. We have 15,000 households on the wait list. So it's about, what is that, 7 for every single unit we have. We've got 7 individuals or households waiting for that. They're qualified. They need this. They're working in the area, but they live far away, or there's a whole host of things happening. But we know there's a huge demand. So we'll know that that's going to be the case here. And I'm going to talk about what our property is next door, and that's got its own wait list in a minute here. But this site is 2 acres that we're going to develop on, and that's in the site that's outlined there, which is flat-ish. And then we have dedicated open space, and this is recorded to protect the area that goes down the hill toward Burton there. That's the open space. So I think you can go to the next slide. So where we've been here is, we've extended this multiple times, this will serve, because we're, here's what I should have mentioned. The process for us is to get a project approved for something and then go compete for financing. We can't get any financing unless the term of art is shovel ready. And so we've got to do all the work on that part and get things just super ready, and then figure out how to finance it. So of course, as part of that process, we first have to come to you and make sure there's water available to serve this thing. That's part of the entitlement process, of course. So we have done a lot of these steps here, and you can see some of those milestones that we've come up to speed on. A lot has happened since then. This project had to go to the Coastal Commission. It got appealed. That was a long, expensive process, and that kind of threw off a lot of things, and that took up a big chunk of time. But we're back at the point where all these requirements are ready, if you will. If you could switch to the next slide, Haley. And now it's about the funding. So there are several things that we have committed to this, and some of those are listed. This county has been a great partner. They have this home funds allocation. It's a federal source. All the jurisdictions get an allocation every year, counties and cities. So they've been setting aside a commitment of their funds that are called home funds that they get every year for this project specifically. That's, let me see if I got some notes. I think it's about Yeah, I do. It should be about 2.6 million so far that we've accumulated in these home funds that are committed so far. There's some other grants that we're going. Another example is this build incentive grant that was a couple $100,000. We're a member of this NeighborWorks of America network of nonprofits, and so we were able to accumulate some grant funding there. That's about $1 million. And the Housing Trust Fund of the county here is a great partner in accumulating and committing affordable housing financing. So they've committed, I think it's about 700,000. So if you're doing the math, it should be about roughly 5 million or so that is committed right now. And so People's Self-Help Housing has, of course, spent quite a few dollars so far as part of the project too. The way that we pay our bills, if you will, is we'll hope to earn a developer's fee on this project, but we've got to pay everything, up front, earn that at the end, but we've got to pay our staff and all that. So we've put, a couple million already into this ourselves. So where we're at now is, and we've tried a lot of different applications, have not been successful. And that's again, because all these sources are competitive. You just don't know who else is going to apply and what their projects bring to the table in terms of criteria that sources of funding are looking for. So we've really gone everywhere, and not all have been successful. There's a recent one that's listed, the National Housing Trust Fund not awarded. CTAC, that stands for the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. So we've gone to the Tax Credit Allocation Committee multiple times and have not been awarded. But just the other day, a couple days ago, we put in another new application to the state for the tax credit financing. So what we need from that is the bulk, the rest of the money. It's the construction for this, we're estimating on the 33 is probably going to be about $18 million or so. So we've got the commitment that we've got. We're asking the tax credit commitment committee to allocate the rest. That's not a check from the state or the federal government. That's just an allocation of tax credits that benefits somebody. And it's, basically a piece of paper that says whoever has this piece of paper is going to get some tax relief, if you will. So we will essentially take that piece of paper that's associated with this project, if it's awarded, and we'll sell it to an investor. Banks are the primary investors in these. They just think it's a great investment for them. They get some community benefit credit from their regulators as well. So that's been a really great source. So the point being is like, this is a public-private partnership that comes up, and so there's a lot of win-wins, and that's kind of how it works. So we cannot tell you today, and I think you could flip the next slide, that we're going to accomplish this, but here's what we're anticipating. So this is the best case scenario, if you were. We have to win that award of tax credits for that application that we just put in for the state. And we should hear about that in October of this year. As soon as we've got that, we're ready to go. We literally have to be ready. There's some penalties if we don't get started once we have that award. Typically it's within 6 months we've got to break ground and get going. So we're going to locate the investor. They usually locate us. There's a lot of demand for that. They're always knocking on our door, see what they can invest in. We'll get a typical, a conventional construction lender, and we'll commence. These things take longer these days to build. And I think, I heard the applicant talking about the materials, the labor, there's shortages. We've been pretty, we can count on the subcontractors that we use over and over to get this done, but it just does take time. So this is our estimate of how long it would take to complete. So we're talking about completion of construction about April 27. I think there's another slide or two, and then I'll open it for your questions, of course. Oh, the need, of course. Yeah, I kind of started mentioning our wait list, but next door to this property, and you can see it visually, we're proposing Cambria Pines, the 33-unit new project, but right next to it in the blue outline is called Schoolhouse Lane. That's a project that we did in 1997. That's like the last affordable housing for Cambria. So that was a great project, and has a lot of great folks. They work here locally. There's 30, so there's 24 apartment homes, but there are 30 local employers at which our residents here work. So they're supporting, hospitality, construction, maintenance, healthcare support, the typical kinds of things that are important here for the community to support. There's a wait list here, 169 applicants. That represents 369 persons. A lot of the folks or a majority, I guess that's the last line there, about hospitality, 65%. But what I was going to say about the existing wait list folks there are people who work here already. Like I say, a lot of them, for the most part, and a lot of them are working from, way out, traveling in to work here from outer areas, or they already live here, but they're doubled up or tripled up. You get it. You've seen that, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
Am I out of slides? I think. Okay. So yeah, no, we really hope that you will support us moving forward by renewing this, extending this, so that we can complete the process, continue to do what we need to do. And we appreciate if you would approve the staff's recommendation. And I'm sure there's questions.
Well, thank you. There will be questions. I had a brief question of staff, actually. So I'm clear about what the extension is for. It's an 18-month extension, but the milestone that has to be met is beginning construction, right? Is something, if construction starts, they don't have to get an extension. Is that true?
Correct.
A further extension, yeah. It's just to get to the point of groundbreaking, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. And go ahead. I think
yeah.
do
I
you
was
have a
gonna-
follow-up question for me on that?
Not for, I'm
Yeah.
going to, as board members, if they have any questions, I might get back a
Okay.
little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions from the board? Dr. Thomas?
Thank you, President Gray. And my primary questions that I had communicated in advance were, what is the total project cost estimate now, and what is the net funding you've gotten?
Right.
You answered those clearly, and I just can't underscore the importance of these projects. The fact that of the people that would be living in these units currently, hard to say how many of them have to drive up and down the hill to Paso and Atascadero and other areas now. They're they're burning generally gas-powered vehicles, and the amount of emissions reduction, greenhouse gas emissions reduction this would achieve would be hugely beneficial to the community, and it creates more of a family community. So I'm excited to hear what you've brought to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray, and thank you, Mr. Triguero.
Yeah, that sounded good.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. First, and this is something that I spoke with the gentleman about before the meeting started, that I'm the only non-homeowner on this board. I've been a renter all my life, and I can tell you out there, it's really difficult to find long-term affordable housing these days. It's really difficult, and I'm dealing with that as we speak. So I have empathy for the people that are in low-income housing, and certainly I'm someone that would definitely support more low-income housing in this community. And I'm hoping that at some point this project does just come to fruition. So in that regard, I wish to ask you, and looking at the list here on page 14, I guess I'm a little bit concerned when we come down to about the middle of the page here, starting with some of the more recent applications. The first one on July 12th of last year. So I guess that's a year ago today, now that I think about it. Applied to HCD, I guess you can tell us what that is, multifamily housing program and infill infrastructure grant program, not awarded. August of 23, California tax credit application submittal, not awarded. February the 1st of 24, National Housing Trust Fund submittal, not awarded. Why is it that, considering this is a very legitimate project that you have here, why were these awards not granted?
Yeah, a great question. You know, there's different reasons because each of these programs has their own criteria and set of incentives on which projects they want to fund. But I want to say primarily the main thing that has been a constraint for us with respect to winning awards is most of the sources, including really the biggie, if you will, the tax credit program, want to see as much commitment from other sources so that the ask of the tax credit committee is as low as possible. What that means is for us to compete the best we possibly can is we need to find as many other sources. And like I say, we've got about 5 million or so committed before we go to the state. And the more sources that we have, especially locally committed to the project, the more points we get on our application, kind of is how that works. Right here in our county, we don't have a lot of affordable housing funding, and other communities are gaining in that regard because they've, just been a little bit more proactive, I want to say. For example, the county has had an inclusionary housing ordinance that it went away for various reasons. There's not been a local bond measure that it doesn't feel like, necessarily voters are up for. It's a smaller area. So there's lots of reasons why there's not as much local resources, but that has been the primary problem for us to winning awards. Other than, a few miscellaneous things, that's I think the main one to mention. And we are really trying to push on the advocacy side for wherever we can to the state and federal level to bring more of those resources into our area so that we can then compete better. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense, but that's the primary thing that's going on here.
So last August, California tax credit application submittal was not awarded.
Right.
So it says here on July the 2nd, which was earlier this month, you've submitted once again.
Right.
Is there a reason you're anticipating a more positive outcome?
Yeah, we've been able to add to the amount of commitments that we have aside from what we're asking from the tax credit committee.
Okay.
So
Did you already say that and I missed it?
not directly, but I think that's a great question. And so I hope that gives you some hope too, that we're not just doing the same thing again. Each time we're applying, we're trying to increase our chances. And we really study the applications from the previous round. You can only apply twice a year to this main source too. There's other sources going on, but that's the main two. And so at the end of each round, their term, we look at all the applications that did win. And fortunately, they give us a lot of information because it's, public information. And we figure out how did they score? What did they use? And is there any way that we can compete better? And we look at those applications. It's always way oversubscribed. We look at those who did not get funded and try to figure out, what might they do? Because they're going to be our competitors for the next round.
Mhm.
It's sort of an art, and we've gotten pretty good at it over the years. The main thing that's going on for Cambria, though, is there's just not, because of the geography, there's just happens to be, here's another example. Let me just say this. The state also has incentive points, if you will, for what they would call a high opportunity area. And so that means our project to score those highest points would need to be super close to a very large grocery store, over 25,000 square feet, super close to a pharmacy, a library, a school, et cetera, et cetera. And they give us points on how close we are. So again, for an example, if our property is located within a quarter mile of those, we get X number of points. If it's a half a mile away, we get less points. Again, we don't know who from around the state is going to be competing for the same resources and what those scores are. But that's just kind of the nature of what we're dealt with because we can't pick up the property and move it somewhere else.
Can I ask a couple more questions? Thank you.
Yeah.
So it says here, March of this year, you applied for affordable housing program and awards announced June of 2024. So what was the outcome of that?
I don't know if I have that page. Can you repeat which?
It's on page 14. It's right there in the
Well, I
middle.
don't have the,
March the 5th, 2024, applied for affordable housing program. And then it says awards announced June of 2024,
Mhm.
which it was last month.
you know what? I have a couple of teammates online. Maybe they've got that. Is it
Yeah.
okay to ask for a lifeline?
No, lifeline.
I can jump in, Ken. I'm not sure. Can everyone hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Hi, this is Catherine. I'm Director of Multifamily Housing Development at Peoples. We did apply for the Affordable Housing Program from the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco in March. And unfortunately, we didn't get that award. And those awards were just released in June. We did get a couple of other projects awarded, but not this one.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. And thank you for being available to answer the question. Okay.
Thanks,
So
Catherine.
one more. So I believe now, as I think everybody knows, we have water challenges in this community.
Of course.
And granted, thank goodness, your facility was built in 1997 happened. But we still have, water challenges here in Cambria. This potential project has been approved by the Coastal Commission. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Let me ask you one more thing. we're going on 12 years now. Have you had any other projects that you've initiated since 1970 that have taken this long and still don't have an outcome?
This is now tied for the longest one. So if it continues on, this will be our longest one. On average, again, these things, there's no typical thing that happens because of a lot of things, but typically I want to say, projects are taking us, well, as fast as like a 3-year cycle and as long as this one. So,
All right. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Farmer. Any more questions of Director Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And I just want to compliment Director Farmer on the depth and insight of the questions. Thank you. I learned so much from that. And and I'm just thinking about the grants that you've been awarded and the ones you haven't.
Yeah.
I've played a lot of baseball. I've played a lot of soccer. Baseball, if you're batting 300, you're a star. In soccer, you'll have hundreds of touches on the ball, and if you're lucky enough to score a goal. So, my line of reasoning is: do we know? Do we have a better player on the bench? Is there another social organization that is more capable than People's Self-Help Housing to bring affordable housing projects like this to the community? I certainly don't know of one. And, maybe I throw that to my fellow directors.
We could address that in discussion maybe. And if there's no more questions, I want to open this to public comment. Okay. Yeah, I'll open this to public comment. Anybody?
I'll sit down.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure, my
you might be
pleasure.
asked
I'll stay
come
close.
back here, yes, but
Okay.
thank you very much for the
Thanks.
presentation. It was very informative. Yes, anybody in the audience or in the hall here wish to comment on this item? Please come forward. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, Christina Galloway. I would just like to ask the People's Self-Help Housing for better communication going forward. I mean, I think this is really important to our community. I think it's insane that it's taken this long, and not that that's to your detriment, but we have to do better. And whether that means we come together as a community and lobby the state and say, like, this is something we need, whatever we can do to support this, we have to do. And obviously, there's concerns that people do have that are valid about, fire and X, Y, and Z with this development. But granted, we resolve all of that. We have to do something about this. Like, these units are a huge deal to this community, and this needs to happen. So any way you can better communicate with us or we can communicate, this just has to get done. So yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment? Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
No.
Okay. Bring this back to the board for discussion. Anybody want to start, or is there a motion? Director Farmer.
I just want to make one comment on Ms. Galloway. She didn't reveal who she is other than just a member of the community. She's involved with the North Coast Advisory Council and is soon to become the vice chair. And she's unbelievably active in the community. So thank you.
I just want to say my own knowledge of this project, it goes back a long way, and one of the big factors in the lengthiness of the process was that it went to a Coastal Commission appeal, not just once, but it kind of made a round trip. The staff had a negative recommendation, and then they had to come back after much commotion, came back with a positive recommendation. So that's a long time-consuming process. So it is. I can see why it took a long time, in part because a lot of that 10 years, I think maybe 60% of it was probably getting the permitting, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. So anyway, Director Dean,
If I may make a motion,
please.
because I think this is,
Wait,
Oh,
Vice President Scott, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Is it okay to just mention that we did get a letter of support from Bruce Gibson?
I don't think he'd have a problem with that.
Okay. For this project. And so, I just wanted to thank him for that. That is, if we can use his help and support, anything we can do to make this happen. Thank you.
And Dr. Thomas, do you have more comments or anything?
I was just going to state that, yeah, the comments I made earlier, apologies, those were really board discussion, and
Yeah.
I was ready to make a motion, but I heard Director Dean, move in that direction, so I'm going to defer to Director Dean.
This is a project that this community really needs, affordable housing, and anything that we can do to help it move along and happen for the residents of our community who need this housing, I am all for. So therefore, I would like to make a motion to approve the extension of the People's Self-Help Housing Schoolhouse Lane Project intent to serve letter.
And if you don't mind, since I'm the only low-income renter on this board, I'd like to second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that this board extend the People's Self-Help Housing Schoolhouse Lane Project intent to serve letter. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
Director Thomas,
A very hearty aye.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Thank you. I just wanted one comment. It's to the People's Self-Help people. Is there anything that individuals in this community can do? I'm taking off Ms. Galloway's comment. Is there anything individuals in this community can do to maybe even beef up the funding a little bit? Because I noticed that the idea, if you get funding from other sources, it helps you get
Yeah.
funding from the big sources.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah.
We're alongside of a lot of other folks in the community are hopeful that there could be a bond measure in not this year, not in November, but maybe through the next cycle in a couple years. And it wouldn't take all that much. It's surprising how this local source, if we're able to put that into get commitments into our projects, it has this leveraging power. It gives us points really at the state level. And so we're going to hope to educate the entire community and take you up for your offer to advocate for that kind of thing in the next 2 years. And if you can connect with us through our website or my contact information to stay connected with us, we'll keep you informed about that. And that would be great. That's powerful. Your voices are powerful. I think that's the main thing for you to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeGuerra, very much. Oh, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray. And just asking that question gets me thinking. And here we have the two, outstanding members of the Cambria Community Council. Is that something that, the Community Council would be interested in contributing to? And given that if PS, public self-help, the self-help housing group could say we have support from the community, that might be big. So just an idea to pursue.
Yeah. Let this suggestion sort of simmer out there. Okay. We'll move on to item 4C, which is a presentation from our Fire Chief Michael Brickey on the latest on the countywide evacuation plan and Cambria's fire prevention plan. So Chief Brickey, please come forward.
Good afternoon, President Gray, members of the board, members of the staff. I'm going to try to keep this as brief but informative as possible. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, present this. And then I'm also going to try and get this on the screen here. Let's see. So, okay, there we go.
Okay. There we go.
There we go.
There we are.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to start it by kind of discussing some of the terminology that we've been using here. When we talk about fire prevention plans, typically those are not used in kind of the way we've been using them here. What we usually refer to those to are like a building or some sort of business that we they have a smoke detectors, they have a location where they're hazmat information is in those buildings, but usually globally, for prevention plans for districts or for fire departments, we usually refer to those as risk reduction plans. And so that's what I'm going to be referring to this as moving forward. We'll be talking about risk reduction versus fire prevention. There's another topic there or a point that I'm trying to make as well. We can't prevent fire. We can do everything we can to reduce the risk, but fire, I guarantee, is going to come into our community no matter what we do. So this to me makes a lot more sense in the direction that we're going. And so that's why throughout this presentation, you'll see me referring to it as community risk reduction. So just as a recap, here's kind of what I've been tasked to kind of bring forward to the board, just this update. We're just starting with I'm preparing this presentation for the board for consideration, mainly with these two points in mind. So providing the defensible space ordinance, and then also providing the budget and the funding alternatives for your plan. So I wanted to briefly touch on this a little bit. So the funding, and I'll get to this more in the evacuation plan section of this, but for the most part, the funding is very minimal. Most of it's going to revolve around types of services like subscription type services or something along those lines. Most of the bigger plans, and I'll get to this again, we're using that with, we're trying to do a collaborative effort with the rest of the allied agencies in our county, essentially. And so that's going to be a shared cost. It's not typically very much. So as those plans come down through the county and with the other allied agencies, those budgets will be presented at that time. Right now, there's no real overview of everything that's, what it's going to cost. It's as we move forward, the hazard mitigation plan is one thing that we're looking at probably in October or a little bit later. And that's, again, that's being presented as it comes through, and then how many agencies are going to be involved with it. Just it depends on that. So that's kind of where that's at with the budget. The other things that I want to touch base on were a little bit of this other, the report on the development of the procedures for the evacuation of residents needing extra help, and then the report on the development of evacuation routes, the safe refuge areas, locations, and then all of our collaborative efforts with the other allied agencies. So I want to start really quick with our defensible space. So, and do a recap here a little bit. So CAL FIRE has for a substantial amount of time been doing defensible space inspections within our community. And so what they do is they have these defensible space inspectors driving through town, and they drive lot to lot, and they evaluate the defensible space issues or areas. And so what one term that you've probably heard in the past has been the LE 100. So that's a notice of defensible space. Typically, if you have a violation, you'll get this, and it'll explain exactly what you've violated or what you need to correct. CAL FIRE's program is not what it used to be. So they used to be able to get out. They had personnel being able to get out and actually, inspect these lots very detailed. They don't have the time. They don't have the manpower anymore and the funding to do that. So they're still doing it, and I feel like it's an effective way to do it, but it's not. Let me back up. It's not an effective way to do it. It's a little bit, kind of. They're struggling with, again, all of those fundings, the manpower, all of those things, and so. You're going to see it kind of transition a little bit more. And that's kind of what I'm going to get to that point here in a second. But AB 38 is another term that's been kind of tossed around a little bit. And those are the inspections that are due if you sell a home, you're required to have a defensible space inspection done. Usually as the seller, you can defer that to the buyer, but most of the time you're required to do that as a seller. So that's another inspection that CAL FIRE has been doing for a substantial amount of time. So what you as a board did, and this is kind of to my point here, I believe it was in March in 2023, and we do it every 3 years. We update the California Fire Code and the 2020, we've adopted these codes, the 2022 California Fire Code and the 2021 Wildland Urban Interface Code. So what that did was that allowed us within these codes, I'm going to see if I can bring this up here. They're going to be difficult to read, but it should take me to what these codes did by adopting those ordinances. Essentially, it allows us, or myself as the fire chief, to be able to enforce, to go out and do the inspections and enforce exactly like CAL FIRE has been doing. So those ordinances are in there. They're right here on chapter 49 of the California Fire Code. And then they're also applicable in the Wildland Urban Interface Code. So with both of those codes adopted, I'll try and bring up the Wildland Urban Interface Code. You've essentially allowed me the opportunity to be able to go out and do exactly what those LE 100s and the AB 38s are doing. And as I move through this presentation, you're going to hear me use the word unison a lot. And I want to make sure that whatever we're doing as an agency, we're doing it together with the other allied agencies. And I really feel like doing this and adopting these codes did exactly that. CAL FIRE can't do this alone. We can't do this alone either. And so if we can do it together, that's the goal. And we can really accomplish a lot more if we do it together. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about that with the evacuation plan and everything else moving forward. But I really feel like that's the direction that I want to take our department and our district. And I feel like if we're all on the same page, then it's going to work a lot more seamlessly and a lot better. So also with adopting these codes, what it's given the district opportunities to do, if you see fit, is to create a fee schedule, and also not only for potential violations, but if you can charge for us to go out and actually do the inspections. If they're being requested, then we can actually, if the district chooses to do so, they can. You are fully able to do that now with these codes adopted. So. Moving forward and moving on to our evacuation plan. So I wanted to discuss a little bit of the evacuation plan issues here. I'm going to bring up our web page and kind of discuss this a little bit. It'll load. So right now we have a evacuation. I'm sure you guys have all seen the evacuation plans, what's going to pop up here. Yeah, there you go. So that's been out for quite a while. I believe it was 2006, I think, is when it was created, around there. And so they haven't been updated since then. That's what we're really working on. This is a collaborative effort, again, to work on and updating these and the safe refuge areas and the evacuation routes. The problem with this document particularly is that it usually will create or it has the tendency to create I'm going to pick my route now and I'm going to do that every single time. It's almost like an always mentality. I'm always going to take that road. I'm always going to go to this safe refuge area. And that can be very devastating in an emergency. So as we move forward, we're really trying to get out of that mentality of it's almost like a static mentality. And we're trying to move to a dynamic mentality of saying, okay, we need to be able to know what to do ahead of time, but it has to be dynamic. When you get that wireless emergency alert on your phone or however you're alerted, we need you to be able to respond to that emergency no matter what it is. Not go do the exact same thing every time, but respond to that emergency. You're going to get the alert, and we're going to know that. But again, moving forward, we really want to have people getting away from that thought process of single road. That's the direction we're going to go. And we're really trying to, again, outdo that with how we're moving forward. Again, when people get the wireless emergency alert, typically it's going to say something along the lines of who it is, which is going to come from county OES, and you're going to get an action, say, evacuation, CMB EO 13, whatever your zone is going to be, you're going to be, you're on alert or you need to evacuate now. And then for more info, this is where you're going to go. Typically, it's not going to have any direction as far as the evacuation routes. Those are more or less going to be given to you by the emergency responders on scene directing the evacuation. So again, we're just getting away from that. We're always going to go down this one route mentality, and we're going to try and change it to a little bit more dynamic. So how do we get there? What are we doing to get to that end goal? So right now, I've been working very diligently with County OES. They've been very helpful. And again, I'm going to use the word unison. We're trying to make sure that if they're going left and we're going right, then we need to come back into the middle and somehow, work with them. Again, because we're not only expecting first responders to come into our area, we're also responding our engines and everything in our department out to their area. So if we're not on the same page, it could be disastrous. And so having that information, having them come into our area and just already know the plan or be aware of, a lot of the processes, then we're gonna be on a much higher level of response from them. And so again, we're moving forward in the same direction with all of our different allied agencies again. So right now, currently, matter of fact, I was talking to Scotty Jalbert this week, and he said this is coming out most likely this week, if not next week. There's going to be a current county-wide evacuation policy created. Again, so all of our fire departments are on the same page, county's on the same page, and we're all working in unison. So what I've been doing to update a lot of these the safe refuge areas that I've been meeting with OES, CHP, the SLO sheriff, state parks. There's a lot of different entities involved in this that we want to make sure that they're all included and that we are kind of getting all the information we need prior to making a final decision on where all of these locations are going to be. What does it look like? Traffic, all of those things. We're doing that evaluation constantly. So, and the biggest thing is updating those safe refuge areas, which we're changing the name to that too. It's not imperative, but it's going to be a temporary refuge area is what kind of the terminology we're going to be using for that. And then the evacuation plans and the wildfire pre-plans. So the wildfire pre-plans are more operationally for our department. So if we send our engine to Park Hill, there's a pre-plan already for that. Our engines have them. They pull them out. They know their maps. They kind of tell you exactly what direction we're going to be going, and it kind of gives you an overview of that area as far as operational considerations. Those haven't been updated also since 2006, and so that's another thing, another kind of aspect of this entire program that we're kind of or plan that we're kind of working on. So moving forward, and as we kind of talked about for a while now, we've talked about the Genesis Protect, we've talked about all of the, know your zones and those kind of different directions. What we're really trying to push, and I mean us as the fire chiefs and the county OES, is really kind of a one-stop shop for all of that information. ReadySlow.org is what they're kind of directing everybody to do. We want everybody to kind of go to that one area of information, because if we start getting off track a little bit, then people are going to do exactly what they've done in the past, which is make their own decision, and then it can again become disastrous with that. So ReadySlow.org is where we're kind of directing everybody for all of that information. If you haven't been there, please go there. There's a ton of information, really good information out there. I recognize that a lot of our community doesn't have the ability to access computers, or they're technologically, they're having issues with a lot of that stuff, elderly, whatever. And so we really want to make sure that we're kind of changing this from computer-based, or doing both. We're getting not only information online, but also in person too. So we're starting to get hard copies out to people. We're going to start talking about mailers to people, and trying to bring in hard copies so people can really get hands-on for that. And that's really huge when we come to the evacuation assistance cards. So we've just recently added both of those deals. So the wildfire action plan, I skipped over that a little bit. The wildfire action plan is it's a comprehensive plan for the individual household to, and again, this is a link on our website. I'm working on trying to get these hard copies out again, potentially in the platform of a mailer or something like that. And then bring it, just I'm working on different aspects to get this out. So with the wildfire action plan, they're very comprehensive. They're going to give you exactly what I said earlier, which is give them the household the ability to prepare. It gives them the tools to step-by-step instructions on how to prepare your home, not only for evacuations, but for home hardening, and then go bags and all of those kind of aspects of wildfire preparedness. And then again, the evacuation cards or assistance cards are another aspect that we're trying to produce hard copies of. So this is just an example of what that looks like. So this is if you go to prepare or readyslow.org, this link's on there. This is the evacuation assistance registration form. Again, we recognize that most people don't have, or a lot of people don't have access to computers. So we're really trying to do a better job of producing and reaching our different demographics here in Cambria. So not only elderly community, Hispanic community, and just the tourism industry, of course. So we're trying to get all of those entities a little bit more informed. And so we can do a better job at doing that. And that's what I've been working on quite a bit with the county and making sure that we're in line with what they're doing, the production that they're doing. Okay. So in a summary here, I just wanted to kind of recap on what we've done so far, as this is an update. So I really just kind of wanted to recap what I just kind of went over. So you as a board adopted the California Fire Code and the WUI Code, making it giving us the ability to inspect and enforce the ordinances that CAL FIRE has been doing for so long. We have the ability to do that. We can work together. We can really tackle this thing a lot better. We've already been out doing inspections. My fire crews have gotten a lot of requests, mostly for the selling of homes, the AB 38 aspect. But we've also, matter of fact, yesterday I was down with the DSI, CAL FIRE's DSI. They were here in town and I was going around with them, showing them some of the properties that I was concerned about. And so they're very helpful. And we're again, really trying to push the working in unison with them, because again, this is not a one-man job. This is something we need to work together on getting accomplished. The county evacuation policy is coming out this very, very soon, and that's really going to set the direction that our agency is going to go. And again, we're continuing the process of continuing the input of all the allied agencies for the direction. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but we're really trying to integrate our agency into the bigger picture and become a part of the bigger plan with the county in respect to the other fire departments as well. So the website just recently we've updated it. The evacuation assistance card links is on there. The wildfire action plan that I mentioned is on there. And then of course, a link to readyslow.org. So readyslow.org, again, I want to emphasize that's kind of where the information, we really want to start pushing that information and getting people to that in that direction. And then of course, there's hard copies available. There are some printed out on the back table back there. We have them at the fire department now. What I've instructed our engine crews to do now is be able to have them in the engine so they can provide them to some of the citizens that we respond to. Most of the time, those are the ones that we're concerned about. If they've, had a stroke or had some sort of disabling medical condition, we're going to most likely be responding there. So that's a good way to get them, at least the information that, it's up to them to fill it out, but we can at least get that to them. I'm also in talks with the healthcare district to have them provide those as well. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Brick. Yes, I will open this to questions, and we'll have a public comment if there's any. But Director Dean, I think you have your light on.
Okay, so these evacuation assistance cards, are they the same cards that are in the calendars that we get sent every year?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, and is
So
it,
I was told so the Cambria citizens, do you received those calendars, as the entire district of Cambria?
well, I know I get them, but they're the assistance cards for, like nuclear emergencies.
Yeah.
For when the siren goes off for the nuclear power plant. It
Okay.
doesn't say anything on there that it's for specifically for evacuation assistance in Cambria. So is there a
Yeah,
way-
yeah, they're generally speaking. So those calendars with all of that information come from County OES, and they are specifically in they're in, can't remember the terminology they use, but it's the area that's affected by Diablo Canyon. And so we typically aren't in that. That's why I'm surprised that we're receiving some of the citizens. If they're receiving them, that's even better. I was told that they weren't. And so, and maybe there's another list we can get on. I was just talking to Scotty Jalbert yesterday about this. And so hopefully we can start to, I was actually looking into producing something like that for our citizens. But that's exactly the card that we're going to be using.
Yeah.
The exact same thing. And it's going to get the information to county, and because they're the ones that are going to be.
Okay, the community council bus picks up a lot of our more senior citizens,
Yep.
and to take them around, is the community bus another way of getting
Yes.
those cards out?
Yes. I was just talking to the gentleman in back there about that, and I handed him 20 or so cards just a few minutes ago.
I think the calendar comes from PG&E, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, I think it's county, isn't it?
It was,
county?
it was
County
the
OES, I
the
think.
calendar that I'm referring to comes from OES.
Yeah, that's-
But if
Okay.
there's another one, that's great too.
Well, I get it in my PO box and I get it in my street mailbox, and they're usually on the counter at the post office for
Excellent.
people to pick up.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I just had a brief comment and question. Thank you for that very thorough report. I'm really happy to see that we have our an enforcement mechanism along with the inspections for defensible space. I think that's something that's a real step forward from what things have been like the last few years. And I hope we do have a productive relationship with CAL FIRE and we can make that work. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see that. And I guess my thought is talking about hard copies of things with all the, various levels of technological expertise people have, everybody still does get snail mail as far as I know, paper mail. And so maybe some of this, maybe it's time for one or more mailings, just, I don't know, not necessarily with the bills, but out to all the customers, CCSD customers, with summaries of, what we've been talking about, especially the card, the assistance card, the information on the updated evacuation procedures and so forth. I think hard copy might be the baseline, and then we have the website, on that, and on top of that, and then you have apps or possibly, you have alerts, email, iPhone alerts, smartphone alerts, and things like that, on top of that. I think print still has a place. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And I think, again, addressing those different demographics, that's a great way to do it.
Mhm.
I want to emphasize also with those cards and with all the information we get out, we have to continue to educate. We have to be able to get out into the community and give them the direction that we've kind of been lacking, and I take that on myself. We need to make sure that we're out there educating our public to the best of our abilities. And, we can do better. And I think this is a great first step, but we have to remember along with that comes that education. So they know what to do. And with those cards, and I've always, emphasized to everyone that I'm talking to in the public, if they need any assistance, I give them my phone number. Also, please come by the fire station, and we're always available. If I'm not there, all of our crews have been trained. And but I do want to get out into the public more and start educating them on a lot of this stuff and having those forms available and getting this information out to them.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Again, is there any public comment from people in attendance? Oh, Vice President Scott, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. What I would request, and this was an excellent presentation, I truly appreciate all the information, is when your countywide evacuation policy comes out, could you send that maybe, and we can post it on the website or something like that. Policy is going to be really important.
Absolutely. And so it will be available on our county chief. I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I believe it's going to be available on our San Luis Obispo County Chief's website. There's a lot of information on there already, but on that website, I believe it's going to be posted. Yeah, I'm almost positive it's going to be posted on the county OES website as well, but I will for sure work with Ms. Dodson and get that link on there
Great.
for sure.
Ms. McElhaney, yeah.
President Gray, I just wanted to circle back on what you said in terms of mailers. So Mrs. Dodson has already created a Spanish and English version and gotten quotes for what it would cost to have these sent out via mail. So we're in the process of doing that already. I'll let her speak to it, but she put it on every link and website you could think of.
Just yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was just.
Well, that's excellent, Ms. Dodson. Anything more to add?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I mean, we blasted it out on social media.
Yeah.
It's all over the website. I worked with the fire chief and Denise on this. So,
See what uptake we get. That's good.
yeah.
So I'll turn this over to public comment now, I think. Everybody's ready? Yeah, anybody in attendance wanted to comment on this topic? Please come forward. Oh. Yeah, Chief Berkey, you can sit down. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying
You can just,
I
yeah.
apologize.
I mean, it's more of like a dialogue. I heard that once upon a time, maybe like a decade ago in Cambria, there was kind of like a collaborative gathering with the sheriff's department and the fire department and Cal Fire and the community, and everybody kind of got together. They weren't being like spoken to, but people were just sharing ideas. So it was more interactive. I think oftentimes people get this information and you're kind of like, okay, wait, what? And so I don't know, maybe something like that, or a fire week where you're meeting your neighbors. I mean, there's younger people moving into this community, living next to older people. Maybe there's a way they can help, like anything that could make it more interactive. And I hate to be the person about signs, but I would love any sort of update about the signage direction. And last thought would be, I know the Chamber of Commerce oftentimes has a hard time getting flyers into the hotels to explain to tourists that there's an east side of town and a west side of town. And so maybe there'd be a way to have some sort of fire evacuation, although albeit super basic, on a map that could also be something that tourists carry with them to get discounts at local businesses or something like that.
Thank you. Good thoughts. We've been working on that. We've been working on that, and those are all good thoughts because, and Chief Brook, you want to say anything about that or? Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Great thoughts. Great. I would love to meet with you at some point and to discuss this further. But we have all of those things that we have taken into consideration, and we are absolutely moving forward with that, especially the tourism industry. And just so you're aware too, if you're in this area, no matter if you're live here or you're just visiting, you're going to get those alerts on your phone when you're in that zone.
Yeah.
And so that's the greatest thing about the wireless emergency alerts. But 100% agree, getting out there in the public, exactly, that fits our goal, and that's the direction we would absolutely like to go.
Yeah. Thank you. I believe there was one more comment. Please come to please to the microphone so people online can hear you. Okay, it's also for Zoom.
I know you. Good afternoon. My name is Inez Almeida. I live down in Marine Terrace. I've been in Cambria since 1995, full-time for a while, and then on and off because I worked for the hospitality industry and cruise lines and things like that. So I'm here again full-time. My question, and I talked to the chief before, and I just saw on the defensible space around the house for the fire, they have what you should do, the trees, the roof, the windows, all that stuff. I find that there is kind of a conflict in there when it comes to the trees. Because if you try to take some trees down here in Cambria, it's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a permit. If it's a Monterey pine, it's an issue. Then, and Mr. Farmer knows. then you have to replant, but they want you to replant by the house instead of replanting it somewhere. So to me, that is a conflict with fire prevention and the defensible space. So is there anything going on? How are we going to resolve that situation? And of course, then there is the people, some of the neighbors that they get very upset if you trim your trees, they don't want the trees. So there is a conflict in there. There is a conflict because, and a lot of, as you know, the homeowner insurance companies have been dropping people, and some they are required that they are no trees, like 5 feet, 10 feet from the house. But sometimes the only way to prevent that is taking a tree down. So if it was some direction or some resolution, you know, okay, you take the tree down, but you need to go plant in there, that's fine. But not having to plant to the house again, because it's going to create the same situation. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's a response we have to that. Those are county policies that are, I mean, there's a conflict with the tree removal policies, which were put in place before somewhat earlier than the defensible space rules, I guess you could say.
And again, I would love to meet with you out,
Yeah.
you know, and we can talk more about this for sure. But yeah, most of the issues that we're faced with the weed abatement and the ordinances and everything are referring to dead or dying trees, you know, that are, or hazardous trees that are going to fall. Usually where you fall into an issue is if you're trying to remove a live, you know, healthy standing Monterey pine. And that's where those ordinances and everything come in. I would love to speak with you more, and we can discuss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the ordinances, believe me, they get confusing and tiresome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Any other in the hall wish to comment? Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
No.
Okay, thank you. Briefly, yes.
Larger conversation to be had because we are all choosing to live in a forest, one of only 5 Monterey pine forests. So, you know, because I agree with you, and it's complicated. You hear defensible space and you want to get defensible space, but also we've all collectively made the decision to live in a forest that we have to protect. So,
Okay.
you know, and I think it's a conversation for the whole community to have, and I would love if you would lead it. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. We can, Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. This conversation here with regard to trees being close to homes reminds me, this probably goes back about 25 years, when we had a real newspaper here in town called the Cambrian. And there was a picture on the front of the paper of a house, and the tree was literally like right next to it. And the headline was "Dangerous Trees." And I'm thinking, well, actually, it's probably where we're planting the houses that creates the danger as much as the tree being dangerous. So I think people, and having lived here for 37 years and lived in the woods, I think we all really love that opportunity. But sometimes there has to be some good judgment as to where we build the home versus how close we are to the trees around us. But that picture in the headline I thought was kind of contradictory. So I thought I would throw that out there. Thank you.
Director Dean.
So years ago, we had 2 trees that were between our house and the next door neighbor's house, and they considered those dangerous trees, and they were Monterey pines. And yes, we got the permits and took them down, and we were required to replace each of the pine trees with 4 more pine trees. And at that time, if you didn't have enough room on your property to plant all of those replacement trees, you could pay green space to plant those trees for you in an area where, you know, the pine trees would thrive. Even though you didn't have enough room on your property, maybe for all of those trees, you could pay them to plant those other trees in an appropriate area. And I don't know if they're still doing that.
I guess beyond the scope of our discussion, I think that rule was changed, but I'm not going to
Okay,
get into it.
but
Yeah,
back to our discussion.
yeah.
Okay, so as far as getting the information out to the community, I know that the fire department does go to the schools and do little presentations to the kids at our schools and give them handouts that they could take home to their families. And that's one way to get the information out. Also, in this past year, I believe that our previous fire chief, along with some of the members of CAL FIRE and the Fire Safe Council, did some presentations for the Hispanic community at Santa Rosa Church. And that would be another way, if we could do that again, of getting information out to members of the Hispanic community or people that don't have social media or internet. Just a thought.
Absolutely. And those are I've been working with our team. We created a public education committee at our department, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to do more of that. We can do it now every now and then, but we need to do it more consistently. And I think that's where we're really going to be successful in those programs.
Thank you. I think before we go on to the next item, we don't have that much more on the agenda, but I think people might want to take a short break. So maybe a 5-minute, we come back at 3. Thank you. AJP, are you on? Okay, we're reconvening. Please take your seats or your positions, wherever they are. Great. Now the board is back. We have one more business item. 4D, discussion and consideration of approval of a settlement agreement with Coast Unified School District regarding acquisition of a permanent SR4 well pipeline and access easement. I'll turn this over to our general manager, Mr. McElhaney, and we'll go from there.
Yep. Thank you, President Gray. Pretty proud of this agenda item 4D, discussion and consideration of an approval of a settlement agreement with Coast Unified School District regarding the acquisition of a permanent SR4 well pipeline and access easement. As we all know, we've been in negotiations with Coast Unified for better part of over a year. We were leasing the well at a significant cost per year, which was escalating, and we started to engage in some dialogue about finding a more permanent solution. At one point, it was $80,000 a year, 60, 40, and we know the story there. We were able through mediation and to come to an agreement with Coast Unified, and on June 27th, they brought it before their board and approved the agreement. And now it is before you. Fiscal impact, which only really is detailing the settlement amount for the access easement, mentioning the $5 reimbursement for their appraisal. We also have an agreement to create a new access road to the SR4 well. Currently, the current access route to SR4 is really winds in and out of the school district property, which creates some safety issues, especially when school's in session. There are some additional costs, obviously, with legal fees that I've been trying to update the board with each month when we go over our expenditure report. But considering the previous offers, that was 10 years at 26,000 or 99 years at 26,000, which totaled close to 2.6 million for 99 years, 260,000 for a 10-year term. For us to come to this agreement at 260,000 for permanent access in perpetuity to SR4 well is a win for the CCSD, and I believe a win for the CUSD. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. McElhaney. Any questions, first of all, from the directors? Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And really my only questions, and it's clear, my only questions are on page 23 and 25, pages 4 and 6 of the settlement. We have Scott Smith, CSD superintendent. Now that Jill Southern is the new CUSD superintendent, maybe it's a question for legal counsel, but we know that it was under Scott Smith's tenure that it was negotiated, but it's what's the right superintendent to list on these forms?
Yeah, thank you, Director Thomas. I did discuss that with legal counsel, reached out to our assistants from Rattan and Tucker, and they did not actually sign the agreement. It's board approved, so they're just working through some of those adjustments, and they'll be changing the superintendent signature line. And we have that updated actually here with the settlement agreement that Ms. Dodson printed out before the meeting.
Well, with that, may I say welcome aboard to Ms. Southern.
Okay. Director Farmer.
I just want to say that when this process was initiated by our general manager, and it became a very controversial issue in this community, there were some less than positive things said about the district, which was a bit disappointing. And I want to say that sometimes you never know what the outcome is going to be when you enter into some type of experience in your life. And my hat's off to our general manager. And I think ultimately, after the ups and downs that happened over at the school district with the CUSD board, the fact that we've come to this very reasonable conclusion that serves the needs of both the school district and the community and the CCSD. I think it's awesome. And I just want to put it out there. It didn't always feel that way, but it sure does now.
Dr. Dean.
I also want to give my hats off to our negotiating team of Vice President Scott and President Tom Gray and our general manager and our legal counsels who helped make this settlement agreement happen. So thank you very much and good job.
Thank you. Thank you. We had, I think we had good mediation. Ty Green was a good mediator, and I think it played out over a fairly long time, but it was successful. I had a quick question about the access road. I do get questions about how much that's going to cost, and it's going to be it'll be a separate item for us to, I assume, to approve. But do you have any, you or Ms. Fritz, have any rough estimate of what that short but deep gravel path is going to cost?
I know Mr. Green is
Yeah.
on the line, and I know he's getting ready to
Yeah.
start seeking bids for that. He might have a ballpark figure. It would be a pretty rough figure, but I can turn it over to him to see if
If
he
he's
has some
there,
insight.
that'd be great.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Yeah,
Hi.
initially, we've got some soft.
You need to get your sound up. Thank you. Oh,
Is my sound up? My audio's on.
oh, good. It was I think the problem is on our side. Go ahead, please.
Okay, very good. Initial costs, and these are informal proposals by some of our local contractors. The road, we're looking at about 40 grand and a 40 to 60 figure for the fencing around the structure or our new encroachment easement there.
Okay. It's a little less than 100K maybe. Okay. Thank you. That was my only question. I think this is was a very kind of emotional process in some ways, and protracted, but I think as the general manager was saying that if you look at 260, even with the road added in as a one-time expense versus having to, even the best offer we got, which I'm not sure was even official, of 26,000 a year for only 10 years, and obviously renegotiated and probably raised into perpetuity. This is a much better deal than we were facing at any point in the negotiations up till then. So yes, I think I'm happy with this. And I'd like to open this, if there's no more further questions.
I have a question.
Okay, but Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to be really clear. So the actual well apparatus is the property of the CCSD.
I'll turn that over to Mr. Carmel because there was some contention during the mediation about that.
Right.
Mr. Carmel, can you clarify?
Yes, that is our property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll open this to public comment if there is any. Anyone in the hall wish to comment? Mr. Dujic, please come forward. Thank you. It's nice to hear. Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn this back to the board for discussion, possible motion. Dr. Thomas.
Well, I'm simply ready to make a motion.
Good.
President Gray?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, pardon the interruption.
We have the sound, we have a little bit of sound problem. I can't hear.
You can't hear me?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay. Pardon the interruption. The school district is in the process of having its surveyor double check the easement legal descriptions. So I recommend that the motion be substantially as follows. I move to approve the settlement agreement with Coast Unified School District, subject to minor modifications to the easement legal descriptions as approved by the general manager and district council, and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement. Again, sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. Would the maker of the motion be able to just do that by reference? I think we already have it.
So
recording.
moved works.
Yeah, it works. Okay. So I will entertain the motion now.
I will move that the board approve the settlement agreement as described by legal counsel.
Second,
Second it.
it's moved and seconded this board approve the settlement agreement with the CUSD as described, in the wording described by our district council. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Yeah.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So, moving on to the reports of the committees and of the liaisons. I think the simplest thing to do is, first of all, is any of the authors of these reports want to add anything to the written reports or comment on them? Any questions from the board regarding the reports? Ms. Dean, Director Dean.
You probably noticed there's not a Resources and Infrastructure Committee report in the agenda packet, and that's due to the lack of a quorum to hold a meeting in June.
Yeah. And also, you'll know, there was no meeting in June of the Finance Committee, which is why there's no report. Any other,
Yes.
Director, Vice President Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a real short edit on page 48 where it says the chair presented this item to the committee. The attachments to it says board packet. That's my, those are from my 20 years at the Nevada State Board of Nursing. It should be committee packet there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Those are just for the record because we don't need an approval of these reports or anything. Okay, I'll invite public comment on these reports. If anyone in the hall or online wishes to comment, is there any comment? Ms. Dodson?
No.
No, okay. Well, I will move on to the final agenda item then, which is Director Dean.
I would just like to let the public know what's on the R&I committee agenda for Monday, if that's okay.
Fine.
We're going to be receiving and discussing an update and information on the Stewart Street tanks. We're going to be discussing an information update on the San Simeon transmission line replacement. And we are going to be discussing and considering the zero liquid discharge pilot testing program and forwarding a recommendation to the board of directors.
Thank you. And the Finance Committee is going to be looking at the final budget for 2024-25, as well as the fourth quarter budget report and update. Future agenda items. I think we can, I don't know if we want to go through what's already on the agenda for this rest of this month and the next month, but I think I'll ask first if there's anything anybody wants to bring up on the board. I don't know if do we need to, Ms. Dodson, you put out the future agenda items right after the meeting, don't you?
I typically do when it falls on our SDO. It was posted in last week's letter from the general manager, which it hasn't changed since then.
I don't think there's any major change to that. So if there's no suggestions or further comments, I think the meeting is hereby adjourned. Okay. Yep. Onlookers. Well.